It's dawn as we taxi for takeoff at Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm trading the dry heat of the desert for a hot and humid Tampa, Florida, and my OM-1 Mark II and the new OM-3 are along for the ride. Join me as I test this gear on the shores of Lake Tarpon. Hello, Tim Oliver here from Oliver Images and Design in the wilds of Florida. Well, the suburbs of Tampa, does that count? So I arrived in Florida this afternoon. I probably have 2 or 3 hours of sunlight left. Figure I'd take advantage of the downtime and get some wildlife photography in. I was hoping to have the new OM 100 to 400 f5 to 6.3 Mark II lens for this trip, but unfortunately it did not ship in time. But for now, the 100 to 400 original, very capable lens with the very capable OM-1 Mark II. So we'll try that out this afternoon. But I do have my OM-3 and we'll be putting that through its paces for wildlife photography as well. But we'll start with this rig and see what we get. I'm on the shore of Lake Tarpon in Palm Harbor, east of Tampa, specifically at the John Chesnut Sr Park, which is 255 acres of trails, picnic areas, playgrounds, cabanas, and of course, wildlife habitats. But as I search for birds with my OM-1 Mark II and the original Olympus 100 to 400 millimeter lens, I came across this ominous warning, which for those who live in the area is just another sign. The lake was calm. I could hear the wildlife all around me. But wildlife wasn't the only thing making its presence known on the lake. As I watched the jet skis, it was clear an advantage to photographing in this area is the animals were more likely to be less skittish and used to people. So I should be able to get pretty close if necessary. Of course, as I turned around, it became even more clear that I didn't want to get too close. While we watch this big boy swim by at a safe distance, it is good to know that I've got the long glass for this particular situation. The OM-1 Mark II does a good job with video, and the excellent in-body stabilization makes these shots possible as they're all handheld. And right now, I'm just holding my breath for multiple reasons. Is there post-processing stabilization implemented during editing? Of course. But having stable video in camera always helps. I can't wait for the improved stabilization of the new 100 to 400 Mark II lens, which features Sync IS that combines the IS in the body and the lens for 7+ stops. So you are aware, the footage of me in this video is created with the DJI Pocket 3. I love that thing. The wildlife images and video you see are all captured with the OM-1 Mark II and the original Olympus 100 to 400 millimeter lens. This shot of a moorhen during its afternoon bath displays the great video quality one can achieve with the OM-1 Mark II. Let's talk about what I consider the important 3 P's of photography. These are preparation, patience, and persistence. Keeping these 3 aspects in mind at all times, I believe, ensures more success when it comes to nature and wildlife image making. A key to preparation is know your gear. Have the right body and lenses for what you are going to capture. Know your camera menus, buttons, and dials. If your camera has buttons you can customize and actual custom settings on a control dial, I highly recommend configuring those before you head out, and remember what everything does. This prevents you from fumbling around with your gear, and you can concentrate on capturing those peak moments of action. But in regard to preparation, as they say, luck favors the prepared and the wealthy. So all I can do is be prepared. Also know your subject, know what you're going to shoot, understand its behavior patterns of certain birds, certain animals, know what their behavior is, how they're going to react in certain situations. Also be prepared in regard to the weather, know what conditions are going to be out there. The time of day, obviously the best times of day to shoot are in the morning, just before and after sunrise, or before sunset in the afternoon. But as I've said before, the best settings, especially for long lenses and wildlife, are continuous autofocus. If you're just starting out, auto ISO might be the right choice. But if you have a camera like the OM-1 where there is a dedicated ISO button right there at your thumb, that's what I use. And I just change it with hit the button and move that front dial and get to the ISO that I want really quick. But if you are just getting started and you haven't quite built that skill up, definitely auto ISO if you're tracking birds that are in different lighting conditions, bright sun and then shade. Otherwise, use the lowest ISO that you can for the lighting conditions. And use the widest aperture you can on your lens. If you have an like this 100 to 400 f5 to 6.3, you want to use either 5 or 6.3 depending on what your focal length is. You want to use subject detection if your camera has it. The OM-1 has excellent subject detection, specifically birds or animals. And again, that's where you can use those custom settings. You can set like C1 for birds, C2 for animals, C3 for planes. And just remember, when you shoot, arms in, hold your breath, keep it steady. I would use the electronic shutter for that 20 frames per second, or SH2 for 25 frames per second. Unfortunately, the 100 to 400 and the 150 to 600 are not pro lenses, so they don't support the 50 frames per second that SH2 can provide with a pro lens like the 40 to 150 f2.8. I came across this anhinga, which is similar to a cormorant, but much more lanky and seemingly awkward. Probably why some folks call it a water turkey. But the name actually means devil bird to the Tupi Indians of Brazil. Yep, that makes sense. Surprisingly, the anhinga does not have waterproof feathers like so many other water birds, and why it's probably hanging out here drying its feathers. It was a beautiful, breezy afternoon and time to just take a moment and enjoy my surroundings. Now, nature and wildlife photography are not just a passion or sometimes a revenue generator. These are moments of zen, an opportunity to get outside and unplug from humanity, to remember how amazing this planet really is and that we must be honorable stewards of the nature around us. In the span of planetary history, we've really just been a brief guest, and we're capable of incredible destruction. But I hope these areas of conservation guide us to our better angels. And just as the Zen was kicking in, I came across another reminder of nature's potential wrath. This one was smaller than the previous visitor, but no less deserving of my respect and distance. Actually, I've been told and believe that in most cases, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone and just swim off to find some food. That isn't me. This guy had the right idea. Time to move along. And I soon found some new subjects. So the second P of photography is definitely patience. And if you want to do wildlife, you better have a lot of patience. If you don't have patience, you might want to try a different genre. Animals will do what they want to do when they want to do it. Patience is key to capturing that decisive moment, that moment of action that makes an image. Or an expression. Or light. Or the perfect background. You have to be patient. You have to move around. You need to look 360. Look behind you, above you, below you. Something could be happening behind you and you have no idea. So patience and awareness are key to getting that perfect shot. This limpkin was searching for food on the shore near one of the cabanas, and I decided it would be a good opportunity for some video. These are always excellent practice moments to work on framing, panning, and steadiness. The OM-1 Mark II has both H.264 8-bit and H.265 10-bit video codecs and multiple frame rates to choose from. Limpkins use their specialized beaks when hunting for snails to efficiently remove the snail, leaving empty shells behind. I found several of these along the shore in all sizes, so this one may have been very busy today. Also, they apparently have an unnerving cry that can be heard at night, giving folks quite the hunting experience. When this one returned to shore, I was rewarded with a couple of great moments. The third P of photography is persistence. You just got to keep doing it. You just got to keep practicing. You got to keep trying. I can go out for hours and maybe not get one image. If I do get at least one image, I'm happy. But there are no guarantees, especially with wildlife, that you are going to get anything. So you have to be persistent. You have to just keep trying. When you practice, do practical practice. I highly suggest going to a zoo or a park, practicing on pigeons, just finches, regular birds, or other animals, house cats, dogs. You got to learn to capture those. You can practice on your composition. You can practice on your lighting and background. So those are great places to go for persistence, practical practice. So the 3 P's of photography: preparation, patience, and persistence. An area of the park I really enjoyed was this walkway. It goes out to a small cove along the shore. There was a lot of activity both above and below the water, especially along the shoreline in the reeds and brush. This is also a great location to spot osprey and other large birds. But this time, it was the shore that had a lot of activity. This group of common and what appear to be boat-tailed grackles were eagerly searching for food along the shore. These species are all over the area and don't seem to be too picky about what they eat. There are so many types of grackles, they can be found practically everywhere in the United States, and so common, I just lump them together. Loud, obnoxious, and bold birds for sure. While I was out at the end of this little walkway/pier, for lack of a better term, several people would make their way out to where I was, including other photographers, birders, and families. They would come and go in slow, meandering waves. But there was a moment that my patience and persistence paid off in a major way. Now, I always stay as long as I can in an area, and if I have to leave, I'll stay another 10 minutes, because that's usually when the magic happens. When it comes to nature and wildlife, some opportunities come to you if you just stay put for a bit. I noticed an osprey landing in a nearby tree. The little voice in my head, which usually spends the day screaming, "More coffee and chocolate!" told me to switch to video. So I pressed the dedicated video button on the OM-1 Mark II and framed up that osprey. What happened next was amazing. It literally flew closer to me, not high in the air at all. It just glided in an updraft above the shore and simply hovered for what seemed like forever. and then it just drifted away. It was an astonishing moment, and when it was all over, I realized I was the only one to witness it. Everyone else had left since the sun was beginning to fall. In fact, had the bird moved to any other location in that area, the light would have been terrible. The universe aligned just right for me in that moment, and even if I hadn't recorded it, I would have still had it in my memory. Moments like these are why nature and wildlife photography is my primary passion, and I only want to continue to improve my skills, my eye, and my luck, as it truly does favor the prepared. Well, it's time to wrap up the day and reflect on my experiences, and of course, rifle through the frames to see if I got anything worthwhile. Hopefully there's something. I think it turned out to be a pretty good day, actually. I'll be back to try out the new OM-3, and I hope you will like and subscribe so you can come along with me to see how it does. If you have a wildlife hotspot you'd like to visit, a favorite bird you enjoy photographing, or an interesting nature or wildlife photography moment or experience you'd like to share, please post it in the comments. I'd really love to hear about it. Remember, Earth is art. Be the artist. Take care.